Why the Pythagorean Theorem is Important in Real Life by Oli Banerjee. Throughout history, many civilizations relied on geometric theories and principles when it came to creating and shaping society. Geometry is still used in a wide array of subjects to this day. Specifically, Pythagoras' theorem is one of the most commonly used theorems. Pythagoras, a Greek philosopher, discovered that the sum of the square of two sides of a right triangle is the square of the hypotenuse, or the longest side. This theorem states that a squared plus b squared equals c squared. This theorem is not only used to figure out the sides of the right triangle, but its purposes also go beyond the field of mathematics. The Pythagorean theorem has spread itself into various fields. Despite being created in ancient times, the theorem has still influenced many modern-day ideas. In real life, the Pythagorean theorem is a keystone formula used in different fields such as navigating, constructing/design for architecture, playing baseball, and surveying the land. The Pythagorean theorem proves its versatility as we can see its importance in modern navigation. Before modern navigation, which is now based off of cataloging information, navigators used the Pythagorean theorem to discover the shortest distance to a destination. When working with two-dimensional navigation, the Pythagorean theorem has proven to be useful. The key is to picture the route to the destination as if it is a triangle, the hypotenuse being the fastest route to get there. One example of the Pythagorean theorem applied in real life would be if a boat were trying to reach a point that were 600 miles north and 800 miles to the west. If you plug these numbers into the Pythagorean theorem, your answer would be 10,000. And once you find the square root of 10,000, you will get 1,000, which is the shortest route for the boat to travel. This is just one example on how the Pythagorean theorem has affected another field and helped it mature into the advanced system it is today. One of the most common uses of the Pythagorean theorem is in architecture and constructing. Around a city, right triangles can be found almost everywhere, whether it's integrated into the design of a building or used when actually constructing the building. Architects most commonly use the Pythagorean theorem when they're trying to calculate the height of a building or its walls. Another way architects utilize the Pythagorean theorem is when trying to measure the diagonals of square rooms. If the architect splits the room into two triangles, they can use the Pythagorean theorem to find the measure of the hypotenuse. The Pythagorean theorem is also used when constructing. For example, if a contractor knows the height of a roof and the length to cover, they can use the Pythagorean theorem to find the diagonal length of the roof slope, or the hypotenuse. The constructor can then calculate the area of the roof and how many shingles you would need to cover it. Even in some of the more basic fields, the Pythagorean theorem is used for many important projects, such as the ones that they're used for in architecture and construction. One of the more surprising fields that have integrated the Pythagorean theorem in order to function is baseball. Historian, statistics expert, and sports writer Bill James made his name when he created the Pythagorean winning percentage formula. The Pythagorean winning percentage is a formula that is based on the Pythagorean theorem that uses a baseball team's previous statistics to calculate their chances of winning. The percentage is formulated by squaring a team's runs scored, then dividing that by the sum of the team's runs scored squared plus its runs allowed squared. The Pythagorean winning percentage has had 4 recorded exact predictions. Unlike the Pythagorean theorem, this formula is not always exact, but it has predicted correctly many, many times. Though this formula does not have to do with triangles, the formula is strongly based on the Pythagorean theorem and would have never been created without it. A common use for the Pythagorean theorem is surveying the land to understand height and distance. Surveying the land is an important task that involves determining the height, positions of points, or the distance of an object for construction or cataloging purposes. Similar to navigating, surveying the land uses the Pythagorean theorem by measuring the given distances and calculating the third missing distance. Surveyors use this process called triangulation. In triangulation, surveyors divide the area they want to map into a series of right triangles. Once they create the triangles, they start the most important step, which is using the Pythagorean theorem, and then they find the missing angles. The Pythagorean theorem helps surveyors develop a better understanding of the land they work with and make it much easier to calculate the distances within a land. That is why the Pythagorean theorem is so important to surveyors. The Pythagorean theorem has proven itself to be the most used theory out of all geometric theories, as it is utilized in a diverse group of fields, such as navigating, constructing or designing for architecture, playing baseball, and surveying the land. Even if the Pythagorean theorem was not always directly used in these fields, it has had a lasting impact on each of them. The Pythagorean theorem was instrumental in shaping what modern-day navigation is in the 21st century. The fields of architecture and design have famously used the Pythagorean theorem, whether it was in building a house or laying shingles on a roof. One of the more surprising fields that exercise the Pythagorean theorem is baseball. Sports writers have discovered another theorem based on the Pythagorean theorem itself. And finally, surveyors use the Pythagorean theorem when calculating dimensions of the land, and the theorem makes the job much more efficient. The Pythagorean theorem has influenced many different interests, ideas, and fields of work to this day.